Thank you for tuning into the Devy Devotional Podcast, a monthly show focusing on Devy prospects, strategies, and incoming rookies. Now here's your host.
Welcome back to the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, Dynasty Coach A. As always, I'm joined by Aaron Wilcox at Aaron Wilcox 86. Today we have a special show where we have our first ever Devy Devotional guest. It's very exciting. You can see we have Austin at Devy Deets on Twitter from campustocanton.com. And a bevy of pods, if you will. But Austin, why don't you go ahead and tell us all about yourself, and then I will let everyone know what we're going to be doing tonight.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much everything about me. I talk all college football. It's pretty much what I do. Devy C2C stuff over at Campus to Canton. And I'm here to talk Devy tonight. Yeah, that's I'm a simple guy. There's not much to say.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate the simplicity there. But like tonight, we are going to be diving into some buys and sells. Finally, getting into like the nitty gritty stuff. You know, we've been going over all these classes, and I feel like that's like the work part. That's not the fun part per se. We have to tell you about these players. We have to let you know who's coming in, who the freshmen are, and all that kind of stuff. But now we're saying like, this is the trading part. This is the fun stuff, and this is where we get to really argue and tell each other why why Aaron's wrong and, and all that kind of fun stuff. But speaking of Aaron, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
No, I'm doing great. Just really excited to be talking with you two gentlemen today. And yeah, I'm ready to get to it. Loving it.
All right, we got Toronto Dave in the chat, and he says to buy Marvin Harrison Jr. And I don't know, maybe that will be one of the buys on the pod. You never know. But let's go ahead and dive right in. I don't know who wants to start. Let's go ahead. It's the first ever guest, so I want to go ahead and give him the spotlight. Devy at Devy Deets. Austin, who are you wanting to buy in Devy?
Buying in Devy, I always feel bad giving like buy this guy in Devy because I can tell you buy in C2C, and I at least have the safety net that like he's gonna do really well at Florida. Then he might not make it in the NFL, but I at least have like that safety net. Oh, get out of here, Kevin.
That's right. Get the hell out of here, Kevin.
But Devy is like a little different because if these guys don't at least get like draft capital at minimum, then like you just look like an idiot. So I tried to choose these names really carefully for tonight. So this is one that I've been noodling with a little bit. Go by Jordan Whittington, wide receiver from Texas, I think. I tried to go with a little bit of a deeper dive here. Because everyone kind of knows, go buy Tank Bigsby. He had a bad year last year. Like he's cheaper than he should be. Or go buy, a freshman because his price will never be lower. But I'm going to toss out Whittington. He's going to be a senior. The hashtag nerds will hate him. But I think he has a lot of things going for him, too. He's probably a slot guy only, but he's a really, really, really good athlete at Texas. He's going to be a senior there. This is his fourth year, no redshirt year. And actually, with the COVID year, these guys all have like another extra year. But I think he'll come out this year. He's on the radar of like the Senior Bowl and stuff like that. So I think he'll come out next year. His biggest problem has just been that he can't stay healthy. When he's been healthy at Texas, he's been really, really good. And last year in 7 games, and he missed like half of a couple of them because he got banged up, 26 catches, 377 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He's really dynamic. You can line him up in the backfield. You can split him out. You can put him in the slot. He probably can't work deep, but he can probably do some short intermediate stuff for you. So maybe he's more of a possession guy. He kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Randall Cobb-ish type of guy where I think he has a lot of versatility. I think NFL teams are going to really like him. And with Quinn Ewers coming to Texas this year, they're going to have a real quarterback for the first time in his entire time there. It's just going to raise all ships. We're talking Isaiah Nayor, the boundary receiver. He's going to have a big year. Xavier Worthy, the tight ends, they have a bunch of them. They got Bijan Robinson, but I think Whittington is going to see a lot of work as well in the slot there. Wouldn't shock me if he has, 55, 60 catches this year, 800-ish yards, a handful of touchdowns. And the NFL, like I said, I think he'll go Senior Bowl. I think they'll like his versatility. I could see a late day 2 type pick here. I mean, and at that point, it's like a second round rookie pick. Like I think that has value, and he's free in formats. And I'm not saying go pay anything significant for him. But I think he's one of those where it's like very little investment. He gets the capital, and then you can flip him right away if you want to, and just kind of build some value that way.
Well, you're definitely right about the numbers guys not liking him. I'm looking at his stats, and I mean, you know, I can definitely give you the benefit of the doubt that he just hasn't played that much, and you know, even some of the games that that are being counted, he probably missed time in those games, or you know, whatever. So you know, he probably hasn't even played technically a full season yet, like altogether. So you know, it's difficult to even say that. You know, like, oh, he couldn't possibly be a thing. So, like you said, he's free. I have no issues with free. You know, like it's kind of like in Dynasty and like in rookie drafts, and somebody's like, "Oh, you took this guy in the 5th round in the rookie draft." I'm like, who cares? It's a 5th round pick. Just take it. You know, I will never ever tell somebody that you made a bad 5th round pick. You know, and so if you're getting the guy for free, I have no issues with it. I do worry a little bit. You know, like with Xavier Worthy and with Nair coming over, you know, like how much of an opportunity he'll actually have. But I mean, I guess if he can stay healthy, maybe they'll open up the offense, like you said, and you know, he can blossom.
So I'll just toss out really quick 2 things that I kind of think he has going for them, even with like that crowded wide receiver room. There is wide receiver coach is Sean Marion, who was just the wide receiver coach at Pitt. So I'm very familiar with his work. Just turned a like borderline 3-star athlete who everyone wanted to play safety, Jordan Addison, into a Blitnikoff winner there, primarily playing out of the slot, doing a lot of work close to the line of scrimmage there his first year. And Sark offenses as a whole have kind of featured a slot guy. Like when he was at Bama, their slot guy was productive for the most part when he was there, whether it was, Waddle, if they'd put him there, they'd rotated Judy or whoever else. So, I mean, I know these are big names, but I just think like there is a lot going for this kid. And I think that, situationally, all he has to do is stay healthy. And I think the rest will work itself out.
So basically wheels up for incoming freshman Brennan Thompson, huh?
I don't like Brennan Thompson that much, but I get. Yeah, but yes, if you're following the same logic, then yes, yes, you should like Brennan Thompson.
We talked about him last week, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but like you said, there's a lot to be excited about at Texas. So, for example, like Isaiah Nair, another guy that you mentioned, Austin, I could certainly consider him somebody who would be a buy going into that high-powered offense for a lot of the reasons that you pointed out. And he's actually a guy who's done it too, as far as he went from 26 to 41% market share in his second to third season at Wyoming. And now, of course, getting in there in the spring and flashing, getting oriented to this offense. A lot of wide receiver talent there at Texas right now that could be intriguing. So I like it.
Yeah, I do like. I actually almost put Nair as my buy originally, but I feel like since he moved to Texas, he's kind of getting a little bit of hype, and so it didn't really feel like much of an actual buy. Just more like I like the player, that kind of thing. So, Aaron, why don't you go ahead and let us know who your buy is for Devy purposes? And real quick, Toronto Dave says Austin is incredible, elite first guess. I agree.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep, I will second that. But we might have some issues with this next guy, but Byron Cardwell, running back, Oregon, and I'll explain a little bit why I'm so excited about him, why I think that he is a good buy right now. So he's a good recruit coming out, right? 4-star, top 15 running back in the class, and he quietly accumulated over 400 rushing yards last year. And he was the most efficient as far as yards per carry, so 6.8 yards per carry as a true freshman. And his breakaway rush rate, it was better than Braylon Allen. It was better than Shipley and Travion Henderson and Rocket Sanders, etc. So that, really caught my eye. But then as far as watching him, he's a guy, he's not going to be a burner, right? He's not going to be a 4.3, a 4.4 guy necessarily, but I think he has enough speed. He has good burst, at least. He has good fluidity to his game, and he's very patient. He follows his blockers well. So there's a lot of things going for him, both analytically, stylistically. And with CJ Verdell moving on, with Dye moving on, I really see a large opportunity ahead of him. And I know that, there's Sean Dollars there, who's 171 pounds. There's Whittington and Marquise Irving. He's transferring in from Minnesota, but those guys are also undersized, well under 200 pounds. And I believe that they're going to be complementary backs compared to Byron Cardwell, who already flashed and has that size at 210 pounds. So I really think that between those factors and that Oregon is they're returning 4 offensive line starters, so they have a good offensive line to run back. Less competition than last year. I know they're bringing in Jordan James, who is a decent incoming running back, but I just think that Byron Cardwell has a lot going for him, and he's already flashed the efficiency in a smaller sample size, and I think that he has the ability to be a 3-down back. So valid for Devy purposes. He might not be a 90% of the touches type of guy in college. So C2C may be slightly less valuable, but he is a guy that I like.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have him kind of like my tier 5, which might not sound that great, but I have like pretty small tiers. I try to break it into like micro tiers, whereas Aaron likes to do the 14-man tiers. I kind of break it down to like 2-man, 3-man, 5-man tiers at top. So when you really consider that, then I want to say he's like my RB 18 or something like that. So I mean, I'm a pretty big fan. I don't know that he's ever going to be truly amazing or anything like that, but I do think he could be draftable when it's all said and done. He didn't get a lot of run in his freshman season, but he outproduced Verdell, and that's saying something. So I think that I think I agree with you that he is a buy. I guess it really just depends on his price, which I can't imagine would be too much. I don't know if you have any data on that.
I don't have it up, and I know that there's people that are very high on him. So this goes to say with all the sells and buys and all that, it's just very much league dependent, right? There's going to be guys in your league, if you're going to them with an offer, I want to take on Byron Cardwell. Chances are that they liked him at some point enough to draft him. So very hard to sometimes acquire some of these buys, but if you're being creative, you can potentially get something done. And it really depends, because I know there's some people that are extremely high and then others that might not have caught on to what he actually did with his flashes as a true freshman.
So I'm looking at the campus2canton.com ADP. I don't know how accurate it is. I'm hoping it is, Austin. But and it wasn't a dig. I just truly don't know how accurate it is. But it has Byron Cardwell as the 60th overall player in Devy drafts and the 24th overall running back. So, how do you feel about those prices?
I'm okay with it, but how about you, Austin?
That seems close. It's weird. He is the rare guy. I have him RB22 for my Devy rankings and 26 for my C2C. So he's the guy where I like him a little bit more in a Devy format than I do in a straight C2C. But I will say, like, their offense coordinator, Kenny Dillingham, has generally kind of tried to lean on one back if he's had one. So I think that does bode well for him as well. I've had some arguments about Byron Cardwell over the course of this offseason. I think I am starting to come around quite a bit on him as a guy that's I thought it might be a split backfield, and I'm thinking maybe not so much.
I like it. I guess we're all in agreement, and somehow I'm the highest on him apparently.
I don't actually put together or at least currently I don't have all of my combined rankings. So what I do for ranks is I break down guys by their class. So for example, I have like 38 2024 running backs ranked. So I do have him as my RB5 in the 2024 class. Where that stacks up in the grand scheme of running backs, I don't know. I would project that would be more like between 15 and maybe 25, somewhere in that kind of wide range. I'm not sure yet. So I might be higher. I just don't have an overall running back rank to give you.
I got you. I actually totally lied because I just looked and I have him at 25. So I absolutely hate him. He's garbage, and you shouldn't. No. So that brings us to my buy, and it's somebody that I think is only getting shit on because of his size. Like, I really don't think that there's any other reason why people hate Zay Flowers, because I really do love me some Flowers. I honestly kind of thought that he was going to come out last year, but I think just everything that happened with the season, that happened to Boston College last year, kind of just made it to where it wasn't really truly possible for him to come out or get the draft grade that he deserved to get. And if you don't know exactly what happened to Boston College last year, basically Jerkovich got hurt, 5 games in, and then a guy named Dennis Grossel. I don't know how the hell to say his name, but he took over. He had a 57.8% completion rate with a whopping 5.3 adjusted yards per attempt and 6 total TDs or passing touchdowns. So, kind of shows you what was going on in that offense. And yet, Flowers was still easily the best wide receiver on the team. He more than doubled the next best wide receiver, at least in yardage. He had the most touchdowns, and he did pretty legit things in not a very legit offense. And so, like I said before, the only thing I really think that I would say is a deterrent is his size. I think, what is he, 5'10", like 175, something around there. But, I think if he gets up to 5'10", 180, just being 180 would make a huge difference for people, I think. Just seeing that 8 there instead of the 7 makes a ginormous difference. But the thing is, as bad as everything was on that offense last year, he still averaged 17 yards per reception. And when you think about the yards per attempt coming from the quarterback and how bad the quarterback was, that's pretty damn impressive. And the thing is, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 53 and 132nd overall right now. And that just seems wild to me. That makes no sense whatsoever to me. I have him, let's just say, much higher than that. So, yes, he is easily my buy. What do you guys think about Zay Flowers?
Yeah, well, I will say that, like you said, when you break it down to a share, his market share is his yards per team pass attempt, dominator rating, etc. Pretty good, honestly. Not too bad when you consider the context of what he was playing within. I do think that sometimes his ability to really go up and get the ball, his hands have been a question that I've seen out there. People do question whether he can actually be a consistent receiver, I guess you could say. So I do question that a little bit, but I could definitely see him being a Wan'Dale Robinson type of player, and day 2 potential there, ability. And I'm pretty into Wan'Dale Robinson, to be honest. I don't think he has all the same concerns we saw with a smaller player like Rondale Moore. But I can see where you're coming from with the Zay Flowers pick. What do you think there, Austin?
So Zay is actually one of the few guys in this upcoming class that I've got good preliminary notes on going into next year. So this is a good one. So my comp for him right now is De'Ami Brown. I think they're very, very similar. They both majority left line up on the left side of the formation, some slot, not a lot. They're weighted dominator and adjusted yards per team attempt through 3 years are both very comparable to each other, especially that year 2, which is kind of the big, kind of giveaway. Is this guy probably good or not? Basically the exact same that year. So I think that's very, very interesting. So I think he's really, truly a coin flip. The big problem that I have with De'Ami that I also kind of have with Zay is kind of what you were talking about, Aaron, where he just kind of plays soft at times. He's very much a finesse player. I think those guys are very hit or miss, but I do think I have him right now as a late day 2 kind of guy. And I think he'll go Senior Bowl, all that kind of. So I mean that always helps these guys down the stretch.
Sure. Yeah, I mean I think both of you kind of said end of day 2. You're talking about the third round. For a guy going as the wide receiver 53 in Devy, that just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. I'm not saying he's going to be the true stud and the number 1 wide receiver in the class or anything like that. I don't see that in his future, but I do see a guy that could be a decent wide receiver in the NFL, or at the very least get draft capital that you're able to use as trade bait and all that kind of stuff. So I just think that he's being wildly underrated, honestly. So that is enough for our Devy buys. Now we get to the players that we absolutely hate. Let's get to the Devy sells. And Aaron, you can go ahead and start us off this time. Who are you selling in Devy?
Yeah, great question. There are guys that I picked out from each class, but one of the guys I will go with is actually an incoming freshman wide receiver, CJ Williams, USC. And he's just a guy that personally I just don't see it with. So I see a guy who has great size. He's going to a landing spot that we probably like, right? We like the idea of working with Lincoln Riley and USC and all of the appeal there with, a great quarterback coming in, somebody that we at least assume can support multiple weapons. But when I watch CJ Williams play, he just seems a little bit below average as far as his speed, his footwork. Is he going to actually separate in college and enough so he can actually be a good NFL prospect? So even if he does put up some decent numbers at USC, I do question whether he is a excuse me, day one, day two guy. So that's it for CJ Williams. I know he has some good hands. He flashes on tape. I just need to see a little bit more development there, a little bit more play speed. And ultimately, maybe his upside is a David Bell. Maybe it's pretty decent, but I'm not sure if he ever gets there. So I've bumped him up in my ranks. There's a lot of people in this industry that I respect, and they have him very high. So I'm kind of torn there, but I still think that he's a little bit of a sell at this point in Devy from my perspective.
Yeah, I can see it. Like anyone that's comped to Keenan Allen, in their recruit profile is probably going to be pretty slow. Like not a lot of players that are explosive get comped to Keenan Allen. As great as Keenan Allen is, I don't know that that's like what we want to strive to be. So, I'm not overly excited about CJ Williams either. Although everything. I think I probably didn't coin it, but like I've been talking about the Williams triplets, over at USC and everything, and just it's more fun when they're all good. So I don't hate CJ Williams, but I don't know that I'm overly excited about him either. Like I said,
he reminds me a bit of actually Amon-Ra St. Brown, which I feel like is a slightly lazy since they're both at USC. But he is kind of like that stiffer, I think probably a slot guy in college, can play a little boundary as well. But yeah, I don't know if there's huge upside there. I will say he went to the All-American or the Under Armour All-American Bowl and looked really good. So I was like, well, maybe I got to rethink that one. But yeah, no, I agree there.
Okay, and there's a lot of guys from that class that excuse me, flashed in that game, and some of them I think are very good. Chris Marshall, I actually have just a little bit higher in a tier above. For example, flashed. I don't know if it was that same game or if it was the other game, but anyways, like you said, he does flash at times, so that consistency could. I'm not writing him off necessarily. So yeah, good points from both of you on that.
All right, so I'll go ahead and get into my sell, and it's one that I guess some people have started to like kind of step back and look at this player and just be like, yeah, not the he's kind of fallen down boards a little bit, but I still think people are way too high on Tank Bigsby. I've become the Tank hater apparently, but that's it's what I'm willing to take that on and go with it. I just think that at this point we're talking about like his recruit status and what people thought of him in his freshman season, and everyone's just kind of like skipping over the sophomore year. As far as we know, there was no like major injury or anything holding him back, because unless they're just literally holding or all that information from us, so all we can go by is what's actually happened on the field. And honestly, he just kind of fell off. Aaron says it's the most predictable sell by me, so it was probably true. I had to get it out there on our first buy and sell pod. It just made a lot of sense. But it's not just like me hating on him. I'm actually looking at the numbers, and he has one of the lowest explosive run or big run rates, which is like runs over 20 yards after the line of scrimmage, and he had a 4.5% big run rate. So that's pretty low. I mean, it's not like the lowest or anything like that, but it's pretty low, especially for those top guys. He also has the lowest PPR points per touch of any player in my top 20 graded players in my model. So like he's by far the lowest in that category. And the thing that one of the things that I've found that's predictive to NFL PPR points is college PPR points. So, it's kind of looking at both of those things and saying like, hey, if they're good in college, it's going to make a little sense that they can be good in the NFL as well. Obviously, he's going to end up in the NFL, but I really wonder if it's going to be kind of like that Isaiah Spiller kind of thing that we just saw this year, where everyone just thinks that he's this top guy. And then as we get closer to the draft, it's like, oh, well, yeah, he's a 4th round pick, And so I think I'm selling right now. He's being drafted as the RB6 according to ADP, and that's just completely wild to me. I don't even have him in my top 12, so I'm selling. I
have heard some whispers that he was potentially injured last year.
Okay, I mean that's good to know. And like I said,
Yeah.
if that actually comes out, it's completely different. But I just haven't actually seen any actual injuries.
So they haven't confirmed it. It reminds me a little bit. I don't know if you guys remember, like when J.K. Dobbins came out, he had that just terrible second year, and it came out like in the combine basically process that he had like this brutal ankle injury that like they just didn't tell anybody about. I'm kind of wondering if that's sort of what happened with Tank Bigsby, because I thought he was a very incomplete player after year one, and to just be that bad year two, like I feel like something had to be going on with him. And I still think there are a lot of issues there, but it does just make me wonder a little bit. Like, and none of this is like fact. So don't go and say
Sure.
Austin from campus to Canton, whoever's listening to this, reported live last night that Tank Bigsby was hurt last year. But I've just heard a couple rumors, and it does make me wonder a little bit, like, was there something else going on there besides Auburn being a crap show?
Right. And some of that maybe being a team level thing is, I guess, what I would ask as well. But like you said, with him, he's not breaking off the big runs. So he might struggle, especially if he gets paired with an NFL team that doesn't have a great offensive line or, something like that. But yeah, athleticism wise, have some questions there too. 4.66, I think, was 40 time coming out of high school. Not that we need to rely on that, but I haven't really seen anything indicating or showing that he'd be a super speedy back. So I can see the Isaiah Spiller parallels there as well, John.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just what just happened. It's fresh in people's minds, but it just made a lot of sense to me. I just see that kind of same thing happening. Like what Austin said makes a lot of sense. Like if he had an injury and if it comes out later, obviously, like it makes a lot of sense when you see somebody go from year one to year two. Now, I will say they added a lot of volume in year two that wasn't quite there in year one, and we've seen with other players that when you get more volume, that the efficiency wanes. So. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, and we have no way of truly knowing, if he got injured or not. But just based on the numbers, I can't have him at RB6. Even if you want to go, hey, okay, RB9, RB whatever, that's fine. But RB6, I mean, come on, we got to move some other people above him, guys. So Austin, that brings us to your sell. Now that I've completely. All the listeners hate me for selling Tank Bigsby. Who are you selling?
There's so many options. I wrote down a couple different names. I'll do honorable mention is Donovan Edwards. I'm slightly concerned about him. He doesn't play super physically between the tackles, and I think that's something that even if there's not been much volume there, we should have some idea on, and we don't, which is concerning. But I'm going to go broader. I'm going to say I'm selling every quarterback not in my top 5 currently.
Love it.
Devy. And obviously I'm limiting this to just college. I know some Devy goes to like high school and people have been stashing Arch Manning for years. But my top 5 quarterbacks, the order is like whatever. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, and Devin Brown. Those are the top 5 for me. And after that, I just like every single player, and even those guys have questions, but I think they're moderately answerable. After that, like you're talking like the Tyler Butchners of the world, the Drew Allers, the Cameron Wards, the Anthony Richardsons, the Hendon Hookers. Like these are players that just have like huge red flags in some way or another. Like speculating on quarterbacks, I know is nice because if you hit the lottery with one, it's worth a lot. Like you get a lot of value out of these kind of guys. But I think you can sell Jackson Dart today because people think that he's probably a first-round draft pick. That seems to kind of be the consensus. I have some questions, and I don't know that Lane Kiffin's offense is necessarily the best offense for him. We just saw, like everyone loved Matt Corral last year, and he went way later than we thought. And I think they're kind of comparable players, like that gunslinger-ish type of mentality. So those, I think, I know that's kind of a cheater answer. But John, you said you had a couple cheat answers before the show, so I just had to beat you. I had to beat you to that. But yeah, I'm selling every quarterback that isn't one of those top 5s, and I'm not an Anthony Richardson believer at all. I think he has too far to go for me to spend anything significant on that. So. Music
to my ears, and honestly, like it is technically cheating, but I love the answer, because I think you're right. Even some of those guys, like. Even Caleb Williams, who we love. I mean, Aaron loves Caleb Williams. I'm a little bit lower on him, but I do like me some Caleb Williams. But even Caleb Williams has some questions to answer. So I think there's and then Devin Brown, we don't even know if he's going to get on the field next year. So, you can love the talent and all that, but, everyone has question marks beyond the top two. And even the top two, people are like, oh, Bryce Young, needs to put on some weight and yada, yada, yada. So I don't know, I think it goes to everyone in like dynasty purposes talking about, this team's just going to go get a quarterback in 2023. And it's like, like in the NFL. And it's like, well, I don't know that there's going to be that many QBs for all these teams to go get. It seems like there's 25 quarterbacks that are just going to get replaced next year, the way that people are talking about it. And it's really like there's only two that are truly like confirmed to be good at this point. So I love selling any of those. And yeah, with the Anthony Richardson, like, get the hell out of here, guys. Like, the guy can't even throw the ball. Like, I get that he's big and he can run. Everyone wants him to be Cam Newton. Dude is not Cam Newton, at least not yet. He needs to take a big step forward before he becomes Cam Newton.
How many guys is Josh Allen going to make millions for?
Oh, I know.
Over the next
it's so
true.
True.
And how long does that shadow last? 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? Like, how long before we're kind of out of the mindset of like we can fix anybody if we fix Josh Allen? Like, it's definitely an interesting thought.
Yeah,
it is.
Maybe the NFL adjusted this year with actually fading Malik Willis a little bit, but who knows? Maybe that they kind of faded the whole quarterback class, right? So I guess we don't know for sure. But
I don't know. Willis still got drafted higher than he should have, so I don't know if they actually faded him as much as they needed to. No, go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that was kind of summed up what I was going to say. I don't mind that call by with the quarterbacks at all, Austin. And I know that you kind of, we can talk about strategies later, but you like the zero quarterback approach if you can't get a top guy, correct?
I definitely do. Yeah, it's still, I thought I might have to revisit it after last offseason. Still going strong.
There you go.
I love it. Yeah, and honestly, like just a little bit of background information. I've never actually been in a C2C league. I am drafting my first one right now, but we're doing the Canton side. We have not done the campus side as of yet. So I've technically not done a full C2C draft yet. So I'm brand new to it, but I'm excited to be in it. But I'm still working on the strategy part. But I think one of the things that I will be focusing on is not drafting too many quarterbacks, because I don't see that many that I truly love. And even the ones that I see, like whether it was high school stats or recruiting rank or whatever it may be, that those things, like I just see too many fail that I'm like I just don't want to even touch that. I'll just go get somebody else and I'll worry about that stuff later.
and they're never a value. Like,
right.
even if you love Tyler Van Dyke, you're 100% convinced that Tyler Van Dyke is going to be an NFL guy. He's not a value. He goes in like the second round. Like, there's no wiggle room for him to be crap there, or else like you just totally blown that pick. Like that's the worst part about it. I'm in one right now. Actually, it's in the 15th round. I have one quarterback, and that's actually a lot for me. So I mean, yeah, I totally punt him.
Wow. Okay. So I might have to keep that in mind. Let's go ahead. Speaking of C2C, let's go ahead and dive into our C2C buys and sells. And this is once again, I've never drafted a C2C league, so this might get a little tricky for me. But we got Aaron and Austin here as the experts that can tell us. So I will go ahead and start off, and then you can tell me. Well, actually, I feel pretty good about this one. So you can tell me why I'm right, and then you guys can go ahead and give yours as well. My C2C buy is Keaton Mitchell, and he's going off the board around RB 51 and 129th overall. And in a C2C league, like the dude had like around 1,400 scrimmage yards, 10 touchdowns in his sophomore year, and like nothing's changed. Like he's just going to continue doing that. So why the hell is he going as RB 51 in a campus or in a C2C draft? It just doesn't make any sense. I get that we're still trying to draft Devy players as well, like Devy purposes. That are Devy players that are going to go to the NFL as well, but I just don't understand why you would not want to have that kind of talent on your campus side and scoring you a bunch of touchdowns and everything. Even if you only want to bump them up 10 spots or whatever it might be, it just really seems to be a player that I would love to have on my campus side. I get he's small. He's 5'9", 188, so he's probably not going to translate to the NFL very well, but it's not impossible either. We've seen crazier things happen. But the thing is, he has at least 3 years of eligibility left. he could possibly, I don't know exactly how all the rules work, he might possibly actually have 4 years of eligibility left. So like, if that's the case, then it doesn't matter if he goes to the NFL. You're just going to continue racking up those yards and those points, and you're going to love it. So yeah, please buy Keaton Mitchell.
He's G5 Devin Achane is basically how I've described him. The one interesting, and I just went through like 12 show sheets to try to find this. Last season, we do a morning show every day before the college football games kick off for like 2 hours. And I found this stat when I was talking about Keaton Mitchell. I think they were playing Temple that week, where basically if he's playing a team that is like bottom third in the NCAA in like giving up explosive rushes, he feasts. If it's not that, he kind of struggles because he really, really relies on like the home run. The nice thing about it is they kind of play in a crappy conference. He plays a lot of teams that allow a lot of home runs. So it's like a problem. If it's like one of those, like, I'll worry about that later. Like you said, he has 3 years if he wants it. So yeah. I mean, I think he's I never end up with him anywhere, but yeah, I mean, the appeal is certainly very high with him.
Right. Instead of taking a chance maybe on a Rayshawn Luke or a Deuce Vaughn, maybe just get the discount version. Like you said, discount Devin Achane and Keaton Mitchell. I do have a little bit of concerns. I know Rajay Harris, I don't think he's this great back by any means. There's competition for touches there. I can't remember if they brought in a transfer running back this offseason or if that was another Carolina team. But yeah,
I don't think so. From what I saw, like looking into it, they were kind of talking about like the tandem, of those two players. But they, I was looking into it, and it really seems like was it Harris? I forget his name. He's more of like the receiving back more than anything. That's not really truly a part of Mitchell's game. So once again, like I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be like this NFL stud or anything, but the dude's going to score points in the campus, on the campus side. And so I don't really think that there's too much competition as far as like the rushing part of the game. But he's not probably going to be like much of a receiver and get you full PPR points, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, they got Kamaro Edmonds this offseason. So yeah, they did have somebody come in there, albeit.
Oh, okay.
And Kamaro Edmonds is more likely to eat Keaton Mitchell than beat Keaton Mitchell out for touches, in my opinion. So that guy can't stop gaining weight, unfortunately.
Oh no. Well, that sounds good. Then I'm still good. I'm still we're buying Keaton Mitchell. Aaron, did you have more to talk about? My amazing buy here, or did you want to go ahead and dive into yours?
No. I like your bite-sized buy. No, that is good, especially for the CFF side. The college fantasy football scoring perspective. It's very important to have those guys sprinkled onto your roster, and you might as well be taking shots on them in the mid rounds, especially those with multiple years of eligibility left. So I really like that. Did you want my buy? Okay, Kamar Wheaton, actually 2024 running back, and this would probably be different if he stayed at Alabama, because at Alabama, I am not sure if he's, if he was really going to play a role. We don't know. He was injured his true freshman season. So unfortunately, he had some sort of meniscal tear, and it seems that is rehabbed. And now he ends up at SMU. And honestly, there's just not competition there. There is a wide open depth chart. He has a ton of athletic talent, and to be honest, I know he was a little bit raw coming out, right? He needed to work a bit on his patience and just nuance as a running back, but his speed, his athleticism was really special. And there was a reason that sites like Rivals had him as the number one running back, a 5-star in this class, ahead of Travion Henderson. Isn't that crazy to think that? And that was wrong. That evaluation turned out to not be very accurate, right? But we don't really know what Kamar Wheaton could have done because he was injured and he was in a super crowded situation. So I really think that this guy, he can develop at the running back position. These guys don't always come out fully developed out of high school, but assuming that he just tweaks a couple of things, I think he has potential as an NFL guy. I know he's 190 coming out of his freshman season. I don't think that weight has been updated yet, so maybe he's 200. I don't know quite yet. Typically, these guys can put on 15 pounds, so that puts him up to 205, I'm interested. But the CFF upside alone intrigues me with Kamara Wheaton.
I love how you're giving me shit for my micro pick there with Keaton, and then we have the 2 pound difference with Wheaton. So yeah. Well, I absolutely love it. Those 2 pounds are really going to make the difference in in the NFL and in C2C leagues. No,
I do think that Keaton, he's probably 1 or 2 years older, and I don't think that weight is quite updated yet for our guy Wheaton here. But yeah,
I know. I just had to give you shit for it. Awesome. What do you think of Wheaton here?
Yeah, the landing spot couldn't have been better. Really, I don't know if you could have pointed it anywhere else on the map. Maybe if he had ended up at Houston with McCaskill getting hurt, but that's like the only spot you could look at that would be comparable. I will say there are some rumors that he doesn't really like football very much, which is a little concerning. And by much, I mean like he actively dislikes football. So those are a little concerning. But yeah, I mean they lost Siggers this offseason, transferred to somewhere in the Midwest, and Bentley went to Ole Miss. So yeah, I mean there's nobody there anymore. It's just him. It's like Will Smith meme in the empty room where he looks around. It's like nothing's here.
I mean, does it worry you at all? And obviously, we're in a different world now with the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. But a guy that went or committed to Alabama, was recruited by Alabama, is all of a sudden, in SMU. Like that's got to worry you a little bit, and that might lend to the story that you're telling with with him not exactly loving football and not giving it his all and that kind of thing.
We don't have enough data yet. I really wanted to do a really deep dive this offseason on P5 to G5 versus the opposite this offseason to see if one does going from the big fish to the smaller pond work out well, or is it prove yourself then move up? Does that one end up working out more? We don't have enough data points yet, so I'm really interested. I want to revisit that question in 2 or 3 years once the portal has really kind of been a thing for a while, just to see if the one is preferable to the other, or if we kind of if you see that happen, you kind of say, well, that's over for him. I truly don't know what to expect.
No, that's very fair. I mean, it's so early on, and we have no idea, and it's ramping up so much that we don't know yet at this point. All right, so we have mine and Aaron's. Who is your C2C buy?
I thought long and hard about this, and I know I just told you to sell all your Devy quarterbacks. But in
so here's a quarterback.
So here's a quarterback I'm telling you to buy. Go buy Preston Stone, quarterback at SMU. And could very well be Kamara Wheaton's quarterback this year. I've heard it's a very close quarterback battle there. Tanner Mordecai was the starter last year, and he played very well. This is not a anti-Tanner Mordecai statement. Had them undefeated or rolling pretty close to it for a large portion of the year. He had a 68% completion percentage. Touchdown interception ratio was great. Was a really, really good player last year. I'm not saying that it's necessarily Preston Stone's job this year, but Stone I think is just as talented. All reports out of there that Stone has basically looked his equal. Preston Stone is really good friends. His family is really good friends with their coach. So I don't think he's going to leave. I think he's going to stay there. If he doesn't get the job this year, it's his for sure the following year. Highest rated recruit in SMU's history at the time he committed. He's a local kid from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He's kind of Johnny Manziel-ish, off script, really, really good. Can keep plays extended for a long time, loves to push the ball downfield. So this isn't necessarily a commentary on what he's going to do in the future, in the NFL, but I think it's a system that is going to produce a lot of points on the college side of things. So again, CFF, the college fantasy portion, is a large part of it. And this is a guy like me that if you're going 0 QB, you get to the 18th, 20th round, you're saying, where's my upside? Aha, here's my upside. It's Preston Stone, who, could be a top 8 to 10 round selection this time next year. Actually, I'd probably be willing to guarantee that. I think unless he gets hit by a bus, you're probably going to see a nice value increase there. So I think he's a target for me everywhere. If I can get him as a throw-in throughout the season, if he doesn't win the job, that's kind of the angle that I'm taking on Preston Stone places. I feel if you just go to the person, you're can I buy Preston Stone? They're going to see where you're coming from. But if you're kind of oh, well, throw in Preston Stone.
Yeah.
It seems a little more palatable.
I really like the call. You know, I'm looking at his high school stats, and obviously he hasn't done much, if anything, on the college side just yet. But you know, he was a fairly prolific passer with, but he was also safe, and he has rushing upside. So I mean, there's really not much to hate, and you kind of assume at SMU he's going to put up points on the college side, like you said. So there's really nothing to hate. I don't know exactly where he's going. I could probably look it up. Here pretty quickly, but yeah, I do like that call.
To give folks an example of like Rhett Lashley's their head coach, what he can do for a quarterback. Nobody was buying Tyler Van Dyke this point last year except for Felix Sharp. I'm contractually obligated to say that. He turned Tyler Van Dyke into like this guy that people think really, really highly of in like 3 months, like no time at all. So it's going to be very, very similar there for Stone, in my opinion.
I like it. And he's going as the 329th overall player in C2C drafts and the 61st quarterback. So, I mean, he's free.
And I have him like half. I have him as like my QB 32 or something. Actually, I have
yeah, most of that is actually Austin. You know, from what I'm seeing here. You know,
I just hop in those mocks. Yeah, I pick my guys. I did that a lot last year. I've tried not to do that as much this year.
I love it. What do you think of Preston, or do you have any opinions on Preston there, Aaron?
Cosign on that one. I like it.
I like it. Short and sweet. So let's go ahead and get into our sells. And this is one where, you know, I said at the beginning or before we jumped on, I said that I was kind of cheating on this one. It's not really like technically a C2C sell. But I mean, it is. I mean, they're all C2C players. So I'm selling Quentin Johnston on the C2C side, especially because yes, Aaron's very surprised right now, but he's going off the board as the C2C wide receiver 6. I do not have him as the C2C wide receiver 6. I don't even have him as my Devy wide receiver 6. So I like Quentin Johnston. I think he might be getting a little too much hype for who he is, and I just don't see it with them. Like, people are acting like he should be in that top tier of guys, and like I said, I just don't really see it. I don't even have a lot of reasoning beyond just like look at what he's doing at TCU. Like, he's not going to help you on the campus side. So why are you drafting him as the wide receiver 6 on the campus side? You know, and I don't even know that he's truly going to be this, like, you know, wide receiver 1 on the NFL side either. You know, like going at like day 1, day 2, or anything like that. So I mean, maybe like later day 2. I don't think he's going to be a first or second round pick. I guess is basically what I'm trying to say. So when it's all said and done, I think he's going to be he should be a little bit lower ranked on the Devy side. And I definitely think, you know, he's not going to help you very much on the C2C side. So I just don't love having him there at wide receiver 6. How hot of a take is that? And did I cheat too much?
Well, I just took him as the 6th wide receiver off a board in the startup. So I hope.
Oh no!
I hope that you're wrong. I think it's actually the first place I've ever been able to draft him. He usually goes in like a range that I'm not comfortable with. I liked the value. I took him. We shall see.
Yeah. Well, isn't there a little bit of an offensive change though happening that could propel, you know, a very successful season compared to what he's done before? Because, you know, from a market share, from a dominator rating type of standpoint, yes, he's done well. But like you said, is he going to put up the raw stats? And I think that this year could just be a little different for that.
That's good. That's good to know. I mean, like I said, I'm just basing it off of like what that offense has done and everything. It's like, you know, even if he takes a step forward, what's that going to mean? 900 yards and 8 touchdowns, maybe, you know, something like that. 7 touchdowns. You know, the dude has like 500 receiving yards, you know, or like 800 total receiving yards in his career. So yeah, I don't think it's overly exciting for the campus side, and I want players, especially in C2C, like I want players that are going to help me both for, you know, Devy purposes and for scoring points on the campus side. And I just don't necessarily see that with Quentin there.
Yeah, new head coach Sonny Dykes. I was trying to pull up real quick what like his he's been SMU's coach for the past couple of years. I'm trying to pull up what his like pass, basically like neutral pass rate's been. But it's taken a while to load here, so I'll skip that. But yeah, I do have some hope. No quarterback improvement, which kind of sucks, but you just got to hope the system can overcome that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, systems change and everything can change. And I mean, if that offense makes a step forward, then he can definitely take a step forward. I guess once again, I'm not the college fan. I don't watch college football. I don't know a lot about the coaches and all that kind of stuff. All I know is the players themselves. And while he looks pretty good, he's not nearly close to that top tier of guys. Whereas maybe it's just me assuming, but when people are like, "Oh, he's in the top 5 of Devy wide receivers," to me it sounds like you really like this guy, you really love this guy, and you want him to, you think he's a stud. I don't necessarily think he's a stud. I think he's a good wide receiver. Thank you, dear. My wife just brought me a drink, but I think he's a quality wide receiver, and he probably will be an NFL wide receiver, NFL quality wide receiver. I assume he would probably go in the 3rd round, something around there. I don't see him going much earlier than that unless he takes a pretty big step forward.
How do you feel about him compared to like Jermaine Burton going from Georgia to Bama, or like the underclassmen Ohio State guys? Like how do you have him kind of in compare lower than all 3?
So I have, give me 1 second, let me bring it up. So I have him right ahead of Burton. I'm not the biggest Burton fan. I mean, obviously the opportunity for Burton is amazing, but I don't know. Once again, it's kind of the same thing. Like Georgia wasn't this amazing offense or anything like that, but I mean, Burton basically got doubled up by a fucking tight end. We don't. It's really hard to fall in love with Burton's profile after that. But the opportunity is there. Like I definitely like Burton. I've moved him up the ranks because of what the opportunity that's ahead with Alabama there. And then as far as the what you said, the Ohio State guys. Mm-hmm. Like I have are you talking about like Harrison and Igbuka? I have them way ahead of him.
Yeah, anybody not named JSN basically. Like
okay,
that next group of guys.
Yeah, like so I have Igbuka and Harrison in like my tier 2. I have Quentin Johnston in my tier 4.
Okay.
And once again, I kind of do like micro tiers. There's only 7 players in between Igbuka and Johnston. So like it might sound crazy when you think of 2 different tiers, but it's really not that many players. But yeah, I'm clearly not the highest on Johnston, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I think I would sell him, especially in the C2C, unless they take or that offense really changes and you're able to actually help. Because otherwise, when are you ever going to start him on the campus side? Like you're just never going to do it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Sonny Dykes offense, like you take it to SMU and hopefully transferring a lot of that over to TCU. I know it's not a 1-for-1 swap, and the quarterback's not quite as good at TCU, but there's some similarities. I mean, at SMU they had Mordecai, who came from Oklahoma, and now they have Chandler Morris, who also comes in from Oklahoma, to hopefully be the quarterback at TCU, because I think we've seen enough out of Duggan. But anyways, like you said, it takes a little bit of projecting, a little bit of risk there. So I don't mind that one. Johnston's being talked about, like you said, John, in tier 1 for some people, which is very, very lofty.
Yeah, and that's basically what I'm saying. I love him as a sell, especially on the campus or the C2C side. I mean, just because I don't think he's going to help you that much, which I've said like 15 times at this point. But why don't you guys, Austin? Why don't you go ahead and tell us about who your C2C side or sell is?
Man, I feel like I have a new this is the stone cold worst value in drafts basically every week. Like I've said it about like DJU, I've said it about Julian Fleming, like a bunch of these guys that just haven't done anything. But I'm going to go a different route with this. I'm actually going to say Rayleigh Brown. He's a true freshman running back heading in to USC. I know there's a pretty big divide on this kid. Basically, Rayleigh Brown is, if you could go back in a time machine like 3 years ago to Jerry and Ely's freshman year, if you said you like Jerry and Ely and you like Rayleigh Brown, you should like take that time machine and go back and slap yourself. It's like, we don't want to do this again. Like, no. We just lived this. An undersized back who honestly isn't very physical, like might not even project as a running back in the NFL, going to an offense that that at least we think probably is going to rotate a bunch of bodies there. It's basically just a 1-for-1 comparison, in my opinion. I know that he's kind of shifty. I actually know somebody that knows his high school coach, and his high school coach doesn't even think that like he's necessarily a running back. Like he thinks he's more of a slot guy. If he makes that shift, I think maybe that's a different discussion. I think that'd be interesting. Like that's Seven McGee did that last year at Oregon, and I've kind of like Seven McGee was too small last year, and now I kind of think he's interesting as a wide receiver. But I just don't think there's going to be any sort of meaningful like big college production there at USC as a running back. So if he doesn't shift to wide receiver at a wide receiver room that's becoming quickly like loaded, then I really don't know what to make of him. And he's going, according to our ADP right now, 68th overall, 30th RB off the board. And that I have a hard time betting on guys that are like 180 pounds, if that, coming out of high school. It's just that's such a hard bet.
30th overall just seems a little crazy for a guy, that small. That clearly is, I won't say clearly, but probably doesn't have a shot at the NFL or much of a shot at the NFL. So you're really thinking more of the campus side. And even then, like I've seen him comp to like Naheem Hines, which Hines is in the NFL, but we see who he is. He's more of like a role player and that kind of thing. So. And even then, like Hines didn't really hit until his final year. He didn't do much for the campus side, until his final year. So, could it be, somewhat similar for Raleek here? I just don't. Yeah, I don't love picking somebody that early. I'm sure there's probably other players that even still have a shot at going to the NFL, or a better shot at going to the NFL, or even a higher pick at RB30 there on the campus side. Or maybe it's just at 68 overall, I bet there's other players that I would much rather have on the campus side at the very least, rather than taking him there.
To give you the dichotomy, he goes literally one pick after Byron Cardwell.
There you go.
If I'm sitting there at pick 67 and those are my two options, I think I have a pretty good idea of which one I'm taking, and it is not Raleek Brown.
Right. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, no, I like it. Honestly, that was one of the guys that I had down, and I had multiple 2025 running backs on that list. So I think that's an excellent one to choose, especially at his price. I think that one might have been my favorite, but my second favorite actually is Gavin Sawchuk, Oklahoma back. But his ADP, I think that's steadily creeped down. So that's cooling off a little bit. I know. Matt Bruning over at C2C, he was very high on Gavin Sawchuk, and I think he might have cooled off a bit, as have other people, especially after the news that Javonte Barnes, fellow incoming freshman running back, was doing really, really well in the spring. And the coaching staff still likes Eric Gray. I think the fantasy football community in general has a little bit of that negative recency bias because Gray burned us last year, and we expected great things, but they still like him, and he has that opportunity now that Kennedy Brooks is gone. So yes, there is opportunity there, but Javonte Barnes, Eric Gray, hey, maybe you want to throw Marcus Major in. I'll probably pass, but there's some bodies in that Oklahoma backfield, and that's even without getting to what Gavin Sawchuk is, and he's 5'11", 185, and though he's rated really well, he's the composite RB7 in the class. I think he was weighed in at 180 actually most recently. And though he has burst, though he's a smooth athlete and he can make some moves to make a guy miss, I just don't think he's elite at anything. He doesn't have the elite speed that Devin Achane has, for example. So maybe he's a Philip Lindsay-like guy, but that's just a low probability bet in what I anticipate to perhaps be that crowded backfield at Oklahoma. So maybe eventually he bulks up. But like Austin said, I'm wishing I could go and tell myself 3 years ago, don't even bother with Jerrion Ely. Probably same thing with Gavin Sawchuk to a certain degree, though I think Sawchuk's frame might allow him to bulk up a little bit more because he's taller. He's 5'11". But that is my choice here for maybe a C2C sell.
Yeah, I don't think I want a guy that that's that small unless it's on like a G5 program. Like then on the campus side, then I'm feeling pretty good. At least I'm going to get multiple years and all that. But at Oklahoma, these guys are trying to get drafted, and who God only knows if Eric Gray's going to step forward or any of the other backs. I think I want to say I'd have to look it up, but I want to say I'm pretty high on Barnes. I don't. I just remember we were talking about him recently, and I like the profile at the very least. So, there's definitely competition there, and I actually like Gray quite a bit too. I guess he just needs to put everything together and be that guy. So we can't say that 100%, but yeah, that's a good call. I like that one. It just don't give me small guys at Power 5 programs.
Yeah, it's tough because if you see a guy that's that small, you hope that they early enrolled so that they could like get into that weight room sooner and eating whatever they eat, whatever else they do. And he was not an early enrollee, which blows my mind where a lot of these guys. I talked to Damian Martinez a couple of weeks ago, the running back is going to Oregon State there. And I was like, when did you have to make that decision? He was like, like entering my senior year. Like, I don't know how more of these guys don't just, or like, especially if you're undersized, like you need to get in there. You need to start bulking. Like it shouldn't be that difficult for you if you aren't like totally failing out of school to do that. So I don't know why he didn't take that option.
Yeah. And it could be a track thing. I don't know for sure though. I'm not in tune with what he's doing this spring, but I know some of these athletes, they are trying to either, win at states or, do something special on the track. So who knows? Yeah. That's just a wild guess.
I will say, I mean, he does seem to have some speed. I saw that he was under 11 in the 100-yard dash, quite a bit, and even had one that was a 10.62. Although apparently it was wind aided, so I don't know exactly what that means. But
how much wind would have to be blowing for you to run a 10.62, or me, or any of us? A lot of wind.
Have you ever seen the videos where they have like a jet airliner, in front of you, and yeah, so that's what we would need at this point. I'm turning 38 on Monday, so I'm not running too many 10.62s right now. But yeah, I don't hate the call, but at the same time, I mean, he does seem like he, at the very least, is probably like pretty explosive and could have definitely a role in that offense. But role players are role players. I don't get overly excited. I want workhorses. I want players that are going to take over the game, and I don't know that he's actually going to be that player.
Yeah, and I think I introduced this topic back when we had Deshane's on the show. So one of our friends. So I guess you are the first guest, Austin. We used to have another co-host. But anyways, we were all talking about strategies on the strategies for the C2C leagues, and either get guys who have a really good shot at being NFL or get a shot at guys who are really great on the college side that help you out scoring wise. And if he does neither of those things, doesn't check either of the boxes, more reason to fade him potentially.
It's fun that you say that because I've definitely been talking about this offseason. It's not a novel idea on my part. I call it like min maxing, like minimum maximum, like your roster, where like if you're not hitting one of those two categories really, really hard, you're basically just wasting a roster spot for me. I don't want that. So yeah, he kind of feels like one of those guys for me, as does Ray Brown.
I like it. And now, Aaron, I think he kind of touched on it just a minute ago, but were there any other strategies when you were talking about whether it's C2C or just Devy drafts in general that you really try to cling to there? Either one, Austin or Aaron, you can start off.
Yeah, I mean, I am the zero QB guy. I did like a whole written series, a whole podcast series on it last offseason. Basically, just if you can't get like the obvious top 2 or 3 or whatever it is that particular offseason guys, and even they're a little bit risky, I'm totally punting the position. I'm completely fine with it. The quarterback position is such a crapshoot that, like I said, I can get a Preston Stone late, who I think could, gain some hype, get first round draft capital. I can get a Clay Millen's been a guy that I've been on for about a year and a half now. Like at Colorado State, following Carson Strong, like he's, that same offense, he's going to be the guy there. I think there's plenty of upside late. And if all you're trying to do is get upside at the quarterback position, then I think there are more places to find it than the first or second round, where I can get a guy like, how good do we feel about Emeka Egbuka getting top 60 draft capital? Pretty good. He goes in the third round. In the range that he goes, you could take him, or you could take Jackson Dart, Drew Aller, Tyler Van Dyke, we talked about him earlier. Like all these guys are like, we don't really know. Yeah. But Agbuka's like floor is just so much better than theirs. And I think a lot of it is just like a question of floor at that point. Like the ceiling is high for these skill guys too. But you don't have to worry about like just, below sub basement level floor there for those guys.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think I think all too often people take the Superflex Dynasty part of the game and try to put it into Devy, and it just doesn't work that way. I mean, we see how difficult it is for people to even hit on Dynasty, players, Dynasty QBs. So, start talking about 25 recruits and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, yeah, give me the wide receiver that is at wide receiver U. That is basically already proven to be a stud just about over the QB that has never touched the field and is at a lesser program and yada yada yada. So I do love that strategy. Aaron, you got anything? Once again, I've only ever done one Devy league, and I'm in my first ever C2C draft, so I'm not going to give too much strategy away at this point.
No, you're good. And I think piggybacking off of that, you can trade for maybe already proven quarterback. So, for example, just to give people advice, maybe Matthew Stafford, somebody else like that who's proven, not really high risk of him, losing his job and or retiring, things like that. If you're really desperate for quarterbacks, just go ahead and trade a bunch of assets for him. I know it's not easy to acquire, quarterbacks in existing leagues, but at the end of the day, instead of trying to gamble on a bunch of guys like Tyler Van Dyke and just all sorts of early to mid round guys, maybe just take the more proven guys if you can, even if you have to pay up. But as far as some startup strategies, philosophies, I mean, in Devy, I like to prioritize guys who will transition quickly onto your NFL roster. So if you only have, let's say, 4 or 8 or whatever amount of Devy slots available, don't load up on 2025 guys that you have to have sitting on there for 3 years, clogging up all of your spots. That shouldn't prevent you from taking an absolute stud, but at the same time, in Devy, especially a shallower format, maybe prioritize guys who are in that 2023 class, or maybe you only have to wait 2 years. So that is something that I like to do. But then otherwise in C2C, it's a little different. Like I like to layer my roster with 23, 24, 25 guys. So you don't have to, have this huge rebuild every year, and or you're not losing and banking on those unknown 2025 incoming freshmen. Because yes, there's a lot of upside there. It's super fun to see how many of those guys can hit and turn into huge values. But that's just a risky way to build. And I've seen people in leagues try that strategy of just really prioritizing only the youth and more unproven guys. It doesn't always work out. It's kind of a low probability bet. So I like the layering strategy with a bunch of different classes mixed in.
I like it. I actually just thought of a question, and it's basically just asking how I should make this trade. But in that first Devy league that I was talking about, I intentionally went kind of punted QB on the NFL side because I knew going in that I was going to have a top 4 Devy pick, just the way that the startup worked and all that kind of jazz. And so I ended up getting CJ Stroud at pick 104. And so, I know that I have a pretty quality quarterback coming in and all that kind of stuff. But my team is studly on the NFL side, and I kind of want to sell CJ Stroud and, possibly whether it's a QB or a different position, it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't necessarily care which position it is. I just kind of want to upgrade something. How exactly do you go about that? And how does that... and once again, this is solely for me or possibly for the listeners, but how exactly does that trade process work? Where I'd say most people in the Devy community, C2C community, whatever, believe that CJ Stroud's going to be a stud. So how do you sell a stud, but isn't in the NFL yet, and like that kind of thing, turning it into an NFL, helping your NFL team? Do you have to kind of take a little bit of a loss, or do you try to get as much value? How does that work exactly?
And that might be very league dependent too, because there might be a huge appeal of landing CJ Stroud in your league. So maybe a guy who has an aging roster, and he'll give you Aaron Rodgers plus some really high premium picks this year. Maybe some other starters like a nice wide receiver plus an already proven quarterback. Okay, maybe you start considering that. I guess some of the things that I wouldn't do is, yes, I wouldn't try to cut him up into smaller assets. I wouldn't say, well, turn him into Anthony Richardson and a couple other Devy assets. It's like, no. And I know that's not something that you, John, would do, but there's some people out there who might say, oh, I'm going to try to turn this guy into a lot of interesting pieces. But I honestly think
we might have lost Aaron. Oh yeah, no, oh yeah, we definitely lost Aaron, at least for a little bit. But Austin, how do you feel about that? And help me make my trade. No.
Is there if there's I feel like teams that are bad in Devy and C2C leagues are so ready to just go stock up on college guys. I've had a lot of success with buying the Staffords of the world. Basically you probably can't get those top 3 or 4 quarterbacks, but if there's a bad team that has Joe Burrow, or I think it's really you could say I'll give you CJ Stroud plus a little bit, and those people, because their team is so bad for whatever reason, are just so antsy to say yes. And so if you're the inverse of this, just for the record, everybody out there, if you have a really nice NFL asset, you should never trade it for just college Devy / C2C assets.
Let's make sure
never do that.
Let's make sure that the people in the Sharks Devy League are not listening before we continue on with this conversation.
Cut the feed.
Cut it.
Yeah, that's a rule that I almost always live by. I've broken it once or twice, and it's actually worked out really well both times I did it. But in general, I just don't think you should do that. I think you're asking to just hemorrhage value if you're not bringing for instance, last year I had in one league, I think I had Alvin Kamara, and I down traded him on a team that just needed a rebuild for CEH, and then a really nice college piece. I forget what I got on the college side. The college piece was really what I wanted, but CEH could be something this year. I did it last year as well. I sold Lamar Jackson and something else. I basically downshifted Lamar to J.K. Dobbins, and then I picked up Caleb Williams before he started for USC. Those are the kind of trades you make where you downshift a tier, and then you get the college guys the add-on. That's how you make a really strong roster, not just blowing it all up, trading it all for college stuff, and hoping that somebody ends up being good.
But you're okay trying to amplify your team, with a C2C pick or a Devy pick, regardless. Like I said, but I know I assume that Stroud is going to be good. I assume that Stroud is going to be a top 5 pick, top 10 pick, whatever, at the very least. And we got Aaron back here, but I assume all of that. But at the same time, he's not helping my team right now. So you're okay if you're trying to do say a 2-for-1 upgrade, that kind of thing. But I think both of you are kind of saying just don't downgrade. Don't try to split Stroud into multiple pieces, but turn Stroud and Goff into this play, whatever it might be.
Yes, yeah, I'd do that in a heartbeat. Personally,
yeah, and that's basically what I'm trying to do. I haven't gone into full sending out offers mode just yet, but that's become my plan. Is my team's pretty studly beyond my QBs. My QBs aren't terrible, they're starters at the very least. But I definitely want to upgrade at that spot. But Baker? Aaron's asking if I have Baker on that team. I don't think I have Baker on that team. I mostly do auction drafts, but for whatever reason, I was just feeling antsy this offseason, and I did multiple auction drafts, and then I was like, you know what? I just want to do an old school startup, snake startup, and so I ended up doing that one. And it just worked out to where somebody else ended up taking Baker. So I do not have Baker. I definitely have Jared Goff. So I was using that as an example because I actually have the player. And I'm trying to remember who my other QBs are. And I don't remember off the top of my head. But, it's Marcus Mariota, Matt Corral, and Sam Howell. Those are my other 3 QBs. So, I mean, they're not a terrible mix, but, like I said, I punted QB because the QBs were just going insane. Trey Lance got picked at like 108 in the startup, and I was just like, all right, guys, I'm not picking a QB anytime soon. But enough about my draft. Let's go ahead and try to help some of you guys with your Devy and C2C drafts and talk about some sleepers. And I think I started the last one. I don't know. It's been a while. We've been talking. I've been enjoying it. But Austin, why don't you go ahead and start us out with your sleeper pick?
My sleepers tend to be guys that I think are going to be like mega college producers, and I don't have that much expectation beyond that. And I do think some of those guys like Sky Moore last year ended up being a guy that had value, just because I think at the end of the day, not for everybody, but like if you're very productive in college, that tends to get like draft capital, which tends to get like NFL production. Like I think there's generally a chain there. So I think a lot of my guys are like the Melquan Stovall's of the world, who I think could easily step in as the wide receiver 1 at Colorado State. Basically, he's going to be like the Romeo Doubs of that offense for this year. And Dubs, was very productive. Just went to the Packers. It's a story, that everybody loves. But I'm actually going to go for a slightly more expensive player, because I think this player is going later than he should. Jaden Reed, wide receiver at Michigan State, I think is a really good value right now.
That's my boy.
Oh, is it? Okay, so there we go then. I think people are going to be really split on him, because he like early breakout, like smashes all these thresholds, but he's like a 5th-year senior. It's like, which bucket do I fall into here? Like, does my data say this? Does my data say that? I think we're going to see a really hard, like, that's going to be a very dividing cause this offseason. But I really like him for a lot of reasons. I think he's extremely versatile. He's played a pretty high percentage of snaps in the slot and on the boundary. I think he can do both. Which I think will help him get on the field and make a roster. Special teams guy. He's been done a ton of work in the return game, which I think, again, like Romeo Doubs and some of these other guys, helps you make a roster, helps you get drafted a little bit earlier. And he is basically like the Dollar General version of Kayshon Boutte, in my opinion. Like, I think like size wise, they're pretty similar. I think like versatility wise, I think in a pinch, he could play X, Y, and Z. And I think he can work short, intermediate, and deep. So he has like positional and role versatility, which I think that's a very important thing for some of these rookies coming in. He just has a lot of things going for him. And in the meantime, he was like a top 10 CFF wide receiver last year. And I presume that he is going to be again this year. Very similar returning cast. And actually, with losing Kenneth Walker, they might even be more pass heavy. I don't know. So
love it.
I think he's a guy that goes like, the ADP versus like what actually happens in real life kind of can change a little bit. But I see him go to like rounds 9, 10, 11. I think that's great value. I honestly am tempted to take him earlier than that. And I'm always like, just let him fall. We can probably get him 2 rounds from now. Like, stay cool. I really like him. I think I could see him being like the Dubs of next year's class, where he kind of goes a little later and then he picks up a ton of steam during the offseason and ends up being a guy that you're really trying to buy.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love or attribute to his profile is the fact that it's the old school transfer, is the reason why he's the super senior. It's not because he's like couldn't do it or couldn't make it or whatever. It's because he had to sit out a year, and so like technically he's only in his 4th year, technically. But he technically a 5th-year player at the same time. So, and
he had a COVID year in there. Like, realistically, right. He's played 2 full college seasons at this point.
He only played 7 games in 2020, and I mean he didn't do amazing in those 7 games. He did okay, but it was his first year in a new offense and yada yada yada. So I love me some Jaden Reed. I might actually be the highest person on Jaden Reed. I have him probably much higher than I should actually admit. So I think that I
wide
think
receiver
I'm with
19
you.
for C2C. Yeah, I got him high. I got him real high. I like him.
Hold on. Let me bring it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got I have him as wide receiver 9 in C2C.
Oh, holy crap. Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, I love me some Jaden Reed.
So if you're in a draft with John, you can't let him sit. But
no, you cannot.
So I am in this league, this startup C2C draft with John. I don't know if I'm going to win out on the Jaden Reed sweepstakes, and that's not even because I dislike him. It's just because in the 2023 class, I just have quite a few guys that I might be just slightly higher on, but at the same time, he's in a tier 3 for me. So that's pretty good in this 2023 class. So not as high as either of you guys, but I don't mind that at all. I'm not going to argue. Besides that, there's going to be analytical wars over Jaden Reed this next year if he does indeed ball out again.
I'll be muting his name on Twitter 100%.
All right, so I did lie. Apparently, the Jameson has hit. I have him as wide receiver 12, not wide receiver 9. So I lied a little bit, but he's still really high.
You guys thought you were annoyed with all the Gabriel Davis talk. I mean, just wait till Jaden Reed. Come on.
And Cedric Tillman. They're both. I'm going to have to mute both of those names for next offseason. It's going to be terrible. Yeah.
Luckily, I renounced analytics, so I don't really deal with all that kind of stuff anymore. So I don't have to get into those arguments. But all I know is I do like me some Jaden Reed. I love that he's your sleeper, and he's just going too late, way too late, because he's going to help you on the campus side, and I think he has a decent shot at making the NFL as well.
Yeah, we actually just a shameless plug for 2 seconds. We just released our Devy guide over at Campus Canton. It has like 260 something players in it. I wrote up Jaden Reed, and I actually slapped a My Guy sticker and like rose him like 12 spots up in the rankings. I was like, you guys are too low. We're bumping this guy. Suck on that. So yes, I fully am on that train.
Absolutely love it. So Aaron, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your sleeper? Is it a Devy guy or C2C or both?
I don't know. What do you guys want? I got a bunch of them here.
Oh, a bunch. Okay. Let's get a Devy, a sleeper. Devy
the
sleeper.
Deepest, darkest one that you've never told a soul about. That's the one we want.
Yeah, especially. But hold on, let me get a pen and paper real quick because we do have that draft coming up, though.
Well, I will give you guys a Devy one. The one that I really like. This isn't a deep, dark secret. However, for some people who haven't tuned in before, Evan Pryor, running back, Ohio State, is my sleeper. And I did talk about him, so go back to the 2024 running back podcast that we put out. But, man, I just think that he is so talented. I know he's stuck behind Travion, and he might have to wait till his senior year to truly start and be featured there at Ohio State. But as far as athleticism, he has it. He's almost up to 200 pounds. He has a receiving background. He's smooth. He has contact balance in addition to all of his athleticism. And he's at this program that can churn out NFL caliber backs. So I really think that based on his cost and then also just on the talent and the landing spot, I think he's the type of talent that can withstand other talented incoming recruits. I know that's always a concern. Are you going to get recruited over, especially at places like Ohio State? But I do think that Evan Pryor is talented enough to sustain there. And even if Henderson was to sit out some games for injury or this or that, I think Evan Pryor is going to show, oh, wow, this kid's really, really good as well. So we've seen Alabama backs, multiple Alabama running backs drafted pretty highly by the NFL in a single draft class. So I'm not ruling out that possibility for Evan Pryor. But specifically for Devy, I like him because C2C, I mean, maybe he never truly makes a difference for your C2C roster on the college production side. So a little bit more of a Devy, and he's a deeper Devy guy too. I'm not recommending in a startup, 5-round Devy startup to grab him. I mean, he's much deeper than that. But like Austin said, got to give you a deep, dark sleeper there.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly 2 pounds heavier than Keaton Mitchell, so we have to love him. It's just, it's no. I honestly, like, I can't even hate on it. Like he has an opportunity, and from what I've read, he has an opportunity to gain weight. Like he has a frame where he can gain weight up to 200 and something pounds. So we're not overly concerned. Oh, Aaron's already saying he's at 198, so he's. Yeah, he's definitely above what he was listed at. But yeah, like he has the frame. I was joking about the Keaton Mitchell. I just have to, we have fun here. How about that? But the thing is, I think he does have speed. He has sub like 10.8 100-meter dash times and stuff like that. So I think he does have a little bit of speed to where we can be a little excited on the team that he's on. Definitely worse players that you could hitch your wagon to.
Yeah, and just to toss out real quick, you were saying, there's always the worry that he gets recruited over. I think Ohio State already has their recruit for next year, and he's not particularly exciting. Mark Fletcher, I think he's like the RB10 in the composite or something like that. Bigger back. I'm not a huge fan. He probably won't end up in my top 15 or 20 for the class. Obviously, if Ohio State comes calling, like maybe somebody else flips, but it doesn't look like they're in on any of these other guys. So the odds of him getting recruited over next year, like I don't think are super high. I like him a lot too, so I completely agree.
No, I think Aaron was just trying to stick the knife in a little bit deeper because on the last pod I talked about Kyon Grays and he was saying how I was wrong, and then the next thing we knew, all of a sudden we had. We had 2 5-star recruits coming in, and I'm like, oh, this is why he hated Kyon. I get it now.
Neither of which plays the same role that Kyon Grays plays. I'm all in with you too. I'm all in with you.
Yeah. They don't play the bench. What?
Oh God!
Fighting words.
I'm just kidding. I have him tier 2, but I also have most of the 2025 wide receivers in tier 2, right? So.
It's about to lose a second co-host at this point, but no. We've had some fun with Kyon Grays. So that brings us to my sleeper. We'll go ahead and round out the show. We're pretty close to an hour 30 here. We've kept Austin probably a lot longer than he wanted to be, but but like I said, we have fun here. We talk football here. My sleeper might be cheating a little bit, but I feel like he's been like the forgotten man, and it's Dante Damas. I love me some Dante Demas, whatever the hell you want to call him, but he's going off the board as wide receiver 56 in drafts right now because he had just a gruesome injury. Do not watch the video, but go watch the video. At the same time, Aaron knows how much I love Damas. I've been talking about him for probably 2 years now, and I was the Damas guy. That was my boy. And then he got hurt. But, I mean, he had a breakout season of breakout seasons. The 2020 season didn't work out because of COVID. But, he definitely took a step forward in the 2020 season, even though it's a shortened season and you don't really necessarily see it in, the full stats. You see it in the per-game stats. And then in 2021, he just took a massive leap forward. He has prototypical size, 6'3", 217. He has, at least decent speed, nice speed, whatever you want to call it. And I think the only question I really have is, when will he be 100%? I see the injury being labeled as an ACL tear. There's no way in hell that was only an ACL tear. There's just no way. It's impossible. So I don't know that he's going to be ready for week 1, but I guess the good or bad news is that I cannot find any news on it. No one's talking about whether everyone just seems to be saying he's going to have a great year. So that makes me believe that he's going to have a great year. But I don't know if what he's doing, where he's at in his rehab and all that kind of stuff. I love me some Dante Damas. I really believe that he was going to be drafted as a quality NFL wide receiver this year if he hadn't had that injury, and it just didn't work out. But yeah, give me some Dante Damas.
I like it. I have always liked Dante Damas. I think he could be looking at maybe a similar situation to even a Chris Godwin, though, where he got injured late enough in the year. I guess it wasn't as late as Godwin's, but might delay when he's actually able to get back out onto the field and really prove that he is a top wide receiver, like we've seen in the past. So love the talent. Think that there's certainly a chance that he could get day 2 capital next season.
A little known fact about me: first ever podcast episode I did at Devy Debate episode 1. This is true. It was COVID season, so we were talking about Big Ten breakouts. And the first name I shot, well, I might have said Chris Ottman-Bell first, but Dante Demas was we each dropped 2 or 3 names, and he was one of my guys. I think if he hadn't gotten injured, he would have been a first-round draft pick this year. I actually feel pretty good saying that. I think the NFL would have really liked him. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I wouldn't even have probably been as bold as to say first round pick, but I mean, easily second round pick. And I love the talent. People we're talking about other players, moving ahead of him, and it just didn't happen. The dude was a stud. He had everything you want for a Devy player, and he got hurt, like a major injury. I get it. Like I really hope. I mean, there's no way of knowing truly if it's going to sap his dynamism and things like that. I really hope it doesn't. But he had that like overall. Like all around prospect profile that I love to see, the return game, the receiving game, like everything about it. And I mean, if you're sitting here talking about him being a possible first round NFL draft pick, then yeah, he should not be going as wide receiver 56. I don't care, regardless of his injury, he should not be going as wide receiver 56.
Yeah, totally agree. And the amount of knee valgus on that injury, oof. I mean,
it was ugly. It was so ugly. And I don't cry, but I was very close to tears that day just watching that injury because I love that man. I love that player, and I watched that injury. I remember, like, I think Aaron sent it to me, and Aaron has this thing. I love it. I'm not like complaining about it, but he has this thing where I hype players, and then he just sends me like videos of them all the time. I'm like, great, yeah, I love it. Like I was a big Jahan Dotson fan last year, and I don't think too many people were like very high on Dotson before he got drafted at 16 overall in the NFL draft. And but like he would just send me video after video, and he would send me Dante Damas videos, and then one day he sent me the Dante Damas knee video, and I was like, no. So
a single manly tear fell, and that was it.
I mean, yeah, we definitely got some. Somebody was cutting onions somewhere. I know that much.
Yeah, we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty mechanisms of injury and all things like that, but it does seem like it probably was a MCL-ACL combo if I'm just going by.
It had to be multiple. Like, your knee doesn't go that way unless there's multiple L tears, CL tears.
But it doesn't seem to be as much of a meniscal mechanism of injury because of how the injury was. It wasn't necessarily like a twisting force that would have disrupted a lot of the meniscus, but hey, I don't know. I didn't get the imaging right, so.
Right, of course. I will say I read an article like earlier today, and it said it called it an ACL injury, and I actually kind of just laughed, and I'm just like, I don't think it's just an ACL injury, but hey, if that's all it was, then I'm all in. Like it's literally all in. But we've gone long enough. We talked about some buys, sells, sleepers, and all that kind of stuff. We had our first guest on. It's been awesome. Austin, I really appreciate you coming on. Do you have anything going on? I know you talked about your rookie guide and things like that. Pimp whatever you got, and let's get you out of here.
Yeah, so we just released our Devy guide, our second guide of the offseason. We also have a freshman supplemental guide. And first week of July, we have our full CFF guide coming out. I've been editing it over the past 2 weeks. This thing legit looks amazing, and it just it has a full team breakdown for every single FBS program, and then it has just player profiles. It's a monster. I think we've probably done 900 pages worth of guides. It's legit a Harry Potter book. Nice. You can buy them all individually. They're all great. I think they're all very helpful. We have a great CFF team that handles all that stuff. So I think that's the next project we have coming up. I'm tired of editing guides. Hopefully it's the last one for at least a few months so I can get to bed at a reasonable hour. But thank you guys for having me on so much. Honestly, great to be on. Happy to be your first guest. And buy, sell, C2C, Devy. It's all good stuff.
I love it. Obviously, because you're the first guest, that means that you have priority. Whenever you want to jump on, just DM us, and we'll kick off whatever guest we have at the time. And you can jump right into the spot, and we'll just change the name or redo the tweet, whatever we have to do.
So bit, can you have Colin come on, and then at the last minute boot him for me?
Oh,
that would be a win for me, my co-host.
Yeah, 100%. Whatever you need. First guest is basically whatever you want, literally whatever you want. So yeah, if you want us to change the name of the pod, you want us to kick Colin, whatever it takes, that's what first guest privileges get you.
I don't ask for much. It's just basically to kick Colin in the nuts whenever I can, literally or figuratively. So that would just be perfect. So no,
or you know, I also have another one where we bring both of you on, and then we just literally shit on Colin the entire time. Like,
well, that's just a C2C pod. In fairness, just with extra people there.
Yeah, but it's on, you know, different audience and everything. So, you know, we can, you know, we can grow the brand, if you will.
Perfect. Let's do it.
All right, I appreciate Austin. Aaron, do you have any words of wisdom before we get out of here?
No, well, only words of wisdom is just go check out Austin's stuff. Great resource. Definitely respect everything he's putting out, and you know what he says on Twitter definitely influences even like player ADP, things like that. So definitely appreciative to have you on as a guest today, Austin. And then otherwise, yeah, I thought we had good chat. I'm looking forward to the upcoming pods for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait. We were thinking about doing a mock draft, but the thing is that me and Aaron are going against each other in that campus draft coming up very soon, and I feel like Aaron's a little scared to, you know, talk about who he wants to talk, you know, who he wants to draft, because, you know, when it's all said and done, he couldn't beat me on the NFL side, so like, how's he going to beat me on the campus side? You know, I have Bethelytics. You know, when it's all said and done, you know I'm going to win. So I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate Austin coming on as our first official guest. Appreciate Aaron, even though I'm going to beat him. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here. I will be back. I honestly was supposed to record a Monocle pod tonight, but then Aaron really wanted to record this week, and so I kind of switched up the calendar, and I have no idea when I'm going to record a Monocle pod. It might be this week. It might be next week. I will definitely get one out between now and next Wednesday. At some point, we will definitely figure that out. But for now, we're going to go ahead and cash out. See you guys.